All righty then, folks. Welcome, Keegan Swenson, to the podcast. And not just folks, but Keegan, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Congratulations. Recent win at Crusher in the Tushar. Home state. It's a bit of a climby race, which I think suits you. The elevation profile I've been describing folks as the shape of an N, up, down, up.
No down again.
Well, yeah, that's the funniest part. Burke, who created the event, he told me, no, it's uphill the entire race. There was a time I was going downhill, and someone's like, why does it feel like we're going up? And beats me.
And your teeth chattered out in the washboards, and
yeah.
Not resting.
There's no rest for the weary. That was my first time doing Crusher. How about yourself? First, I believe.
Second. I done it once back in 2017.
Okay,
so it was a little bit ago.
How did that pan out? How did it pan out 5 years ago for you?
It was pretty good. I was second or third. I can't remember if I was behind Todd Wells and Robbie Squire. So.
Oh, right on. Those are not slow individuals.
No, it was a good one.
Okay, so then fast forward
to back then.
Fast forward to the present. You won last weekend. You won in, call it, comfortable fashion with something like an 8-minute buffer. How was the race for you? Awesome, hard, everything in between?
Yeah, man, it was good. I just love those races where there's not a ton of tactics and it's just, you can just go all out, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a little bit more skill involved with the descending and whatnot. And when I went relatively smooth. I was a little bit nervous when Howie's chain came off on the descent. He and I were together, and we were planning to, work together across the flats and at least, have each other to get to the climb again.
Sure.
But his chain just bounced off like 300 meters before the pavement. Sorry, we were so close. Mm-hmm. And then so I was on my own. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just keep on chugging. And I knew it was only about 10 miles of pavement. Mm-hmm. So on the flats, so I figured I'd be able to make it, and worked out. But it was a good time. It was fun. It's the hometown race, and everyone. I know a lot of people out there racing, so it was cool going back up cool to Crush. Everyone's cheering and having a good time. So it was fun.
It was impressive, not least of which because the race absolutely destroyed me. But elevation is not my favorite thing, so we can leave that alone. Given the results that you've had over the past year and multiple years at that point, do you think that anything shy of a victory would have been a success in your book?
Honestly, no. I went there with the full intention of winning, and the course suited me really well, and it's also my home state, so I think really wanted to win that one.
That makes perfect sense.
Would have been a bit bummed if I didn't.
So along the same lines, looking back at the past few years, you've had a great deal of success. Can you name the last 3 races that you did not win?
Unbound.
Which I will qualify as you were also the first lifetime finisher. So in a way you took a that one comes with an asterisk, but I'll give it to you. Okay.
That's like a consolation prize. Didn't win, but it was close.
Tallied 30 points.
Unbound, multiple stages of Cape Epic.
Okay.
So that one where we finished overall? I can't remember. We were like 6th or 7th or something overall, and we had around one podium, one of the stages. Mm-hmm. And then last year, Marathon Worlds was 7th. Mm-hmm. So, which is having heard you dissect that race in Payson's podcast. To come back to 7th is nothing short of impressive as well. So I was still quite happy with that. All things considered. So.
Okay. Jumping way back. I'm curious about your upbringing. What is life like growing up? Where were you? What's family like? Siblings? What sports were you playing? Were you academic at all? Give me the
grew up here I'm in Heber currently, but grew up in Park City, Utah. Was primarily a downhill ski racer, actually, and did mountain bike in the summers and played soccer and all that stuff, skateboard, pretty much just all sorts of different outdoor stuff. Also rode dirt bikes and, kind of a mix of all sports, and kind of slowly gravitated towards riding my bike more and more. And just both my parents did it. Used to ride in the back of the tandem with my dad, which was, we going to Moab, ride there. We rode all the trails in Park City. And
nice.
Then I kind of, just slowly started racing and did the local Intermountain Cup series. And then went to my first national championships when I was 15, and it all kind of started snowballing from there. So
how about, one, do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have one sister.
Yep.
Yeah. One younger sister.
So I heard sometime in the past couple years, you took the Everest world record. Your parents were out there on the course, helping you out with feeds and whatnot. I mean, the logistics of something like that are not insignificant. I mean, are you presumably close with your parents? Were they really supportive in all the stuff that you're doing? Was cycling a little bit outlandish? Well, I mean, you said you rode with your dad, but I mean, how was parental support for you?
No, I mean, they're super supportive. They've been, behind me the whole way, helping me figure out ways to, get out of different classes in high school so I could take some online courses so I could travel and race more. And, because school didn't get out until, 2:30 or 3 o'clock. So I was always out at noon or 1. So I had more time to train, and it was easier traveling. So I took some stuff online. So yeah, they're super supportive, and then like you mentioned, anytime I'm doing anything relatively close to Utah, they'll come watch. They were down at Crusher last weekend.
Nice.
So they just camped out there and watched the race. And at the Everest, they, came out and helped feed. And that was like a last minute thing for me. I was like, I'm gonna go Everest next weekend. And if you guys want to come help feed me, that'd be sweet. Otherwise I'll have to figure something else out. So yeah, it's, they're always down to help me with my kind of dumb ideas or whatever I want to do. So.
Well, the dumb ideas are excellent, presumably, and largely as they revolve around a mountain bike. So correct me where I'm wrong here. I see 2012 junior national champion. You're jumping into the U23 ranks in 2013 and 14. In 2014, you're the U23 national champion. You start racing elites after that. You're doing well in 2017, 18. Basically, when I look at results between 2019 and the present, you're winning a lot. XCO national champion, short track national champion. You tally Leadville, Oz Trails. In 2020, maybe you'd done smaller races at that time, but you won Belgian Waffle Ride Cedar City. So the point being, there's a good diverse skill set in there on two wheels. I'm curious, at this point in your life and in your career, how are you picking events since they span mountain bike, marathon mountain bike, 24 Hours of Pueblo, gravel now?
Right.
How are you picking events?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, last year in 2021, going to Tokyo, I was going to the Olympics was a big goal of mine. So I was fully focused on racing XCO, and I did some gravel racing. I did some other Belgian Waffle Ride in Cedar City and some other races here and there, but I was pretty much fully focused on cross country. And then didn't make the cut for the Olympics. So I just kind of pivoted and started doing all these races I'd always wanted to do, and I'd always wanted to try and win. So Leadville was a big one. I was like, that's a race I've always wanted to do. So I, went straight for that one. And then I was like, oh, I want to do this race. And then I was really wanting to do Unbound this year. That was a race. I was for some reason I was like, oh, I want to go try, and it just sounds nasty, big, hard, Yeah. And it's totally out of my wheelhouse. It's relatively flat, a lot of tactics, gravel. And I was like, it'd be really cool if I can win this race, because it's something I don't think I really, I thought I could do it, but it wasn't nearly as achievable in my mind as Leadville or these other races. And then the Grand Prix got announced, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I can do all these races. And it's fun to do different stuff. Just what I've been, for so long, I was racing the same World Cup circuit, just chasing around these different World Cups, bouncing around the world and racing on the same 5-kilometer track. So it's kind of been a fun adventure for me to race these gravel races and be able to do these races I've always wanted to do. So I guess that's kind of how I've kind of picked them recently, and the Grand Prix made it relatively easy. And then sure, there's some other races I'd like to do, but at the same time, I also enjoy just kind of hanging out at home and training and focusing on these races. So I don't feel like I have to race all the time, I guess.
Yeah, it's cool in that you get to, I mean, you get to write your own script now, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
What is life like as you're pursuing, I mean, were the Olympics the number one goal for a handful of years? Or was it, okay, that would be a cool bit of icing on top of the cake? Or?
For a while, it was kind of like that would be the cool, icing on the cake kind of thing. And then as it got closer, it became like very real that I could go.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was quite close between Chris and I.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the goal, but I also like didn't want to go. Like, I'm not trying to take away from anyone who just did go to the Olympics, but I wanted to go with the goal of like actually having a shot at a decent result at like a top 5 or podium or whatever. And I didn't want to go and just be a participant.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I did go, I wanted to be fully prepared and like have the ability to, pull a good result.
Sure.
So, it would have been cool to go. And maybe there's still a chance down the road to go, but it's still not like, in my mind, there's still a lot of other awesome things you can do on bikes that don't involve the Olympics. So
heck yeah. Well, right. You got Everest world record, White Rim FKT, which became and has certainly become a very hot pursuit. My guess is your answer is going to be similar to what you just hit on, but then how does the adventure side of things fit into this schedule building on top of the events that you already have to do?
Yeah, I mean, the FKT thing is pretty cool to me. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of this whole relatively new thing that pacing kind of got going with the White Rim a few years back. And it's cool because you can go do, like I'd never done White Rim for some crazy reason. It's basically my backyard. I've been riding a Moab since I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And just I'd heard about it. I knew exactly where it was. I knew what it was, but just never done it.
Uh-huh.
And then a couple of years ago, I think in 2019, first time I did it, I was like, I'm just going to drive down next weekend. We're going to go do the FKT. Just send it. Didn't really know. I just looked at the course. I looked at Payson, watched Payson's video.
Yeah.
Looked at it on Strava. Figured I was like, 1 bottle, Camelback, bunch of gels. We'll just send it.
Yeah.
And then, I got the FKT and then, it got taken. So I wanted to go back and do it again. I made a little more conscious effort of what I had to do. And so those things are cool because they're kind of unique and it's racing, but it's also self-supported. And there's like the adventure side of it, which is pretty cool to me.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back at the White Rim, you're like, well, if I crashed out there, like probably no one would have found me for quite a while. And like, it's kind of dangerous, which is also kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because racing is very sterilized to a certain extent,
Yeah.
Even if some of the gravel races aren't the safest, which I know we've been talking about that, trying to make them safer because we're racing in a bunch and there's just so much that can go wrong and there's more cars involved.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff, there's no cars out on the White Rim. There's Jeeps going 10 miles an hour at most, so it's, anyway, you're more in control of your own destiny to a certain extent. You're not going to get crashed because someone else takes you out or a car hits you or whatever. So,
do you race with when you do an FKT or maybe White Rim in particular, do you race with any sort of track spotter or you just say, yo, if you don't find me, I'm going to be out there somewhere?
I mean, I think if I was going to do something bigger, if I was going to go for like the Colorado Trail or like Arizona Trail, something like that, I would have a spot tracker because you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's people on White Rim. If you go like during a reasonably warm time, like it's not hot, it's not too cold. There's people out there and people knew where I was. Like someone would have taken my truck and found me eventually. So,
sure.
I mean, and there is random spots of cell service.
Uh-huh.
But
so you've ridden Moab since you were 8 years old. I, with my tail between my legs, say I've never ridden Moab, which is a bummer. Is White Rim characteristic of Moab? Is it a good cross section of the whole area, or like if I go to Moab, where do I need to go?
I mean, the White Rim isn't like it's its own thing in a way. You get to experience a lot of what Moab has in the sense that like it's a lot of it's just like 2-track and it's like, sure, there's some rocks and some sand. And the main thing about White Rim is just the views. Like you're just ripping along like the edge of this massive cliff that drops off to there's like, I guess there's like a little river. There's a river on one side and then there's just this big big channels, you can see like off in the Canyonlands National Park. And like sometimes when I was out there doing it, you just get like, you kind of zone out and you end up just staring off in the distance for a second because it's so cool out there. So I would say it's like, if you were to go, it'd be, you would love it just because a lot of it's just like 2-track and it's not like super stressful or technical. Because a lot of Moab is really hard and technical riding. And I mean, there's a lot more like mellow kind of cruisy trails, which is cool. So there's more options for people to enjoy it, but I wouldn't say White Rim's like, it's not like Moab in a nutshell, I guess. There's a lot more to it than that.
Sure. Yeah. So let's see. Based on interviews that I've heard you do in the past, you seem to be a detail-oriented person in order to get the most out of yourself. So, I mean, abbreviations like FTP, TSS, CTL, I think are probably old hat to you. I've heard you talk about having a nutritionist. I hear you batting ideas around with your coach. So the question is, how much do you of your success now do you suppose has to do with like the meticulous, dialed nature that you have in terms of performing and seeking the best out of yourself, as opposed to just having a better physiology than other folks, like a better strength to weight ratio?
Yeah, I mean, physiology and like just hard training and that stuff is probably the biggest factor. But I think those smaller, like nutrition side of things, all this other stuff allow you to like use your full potential in my mind. So there's not like, you're not like, oh, if I did this, I could go this much faster. If I did this, then it just lets you like, for me, it just lets me focus on the only thing I have to do. And I have like a plan of I'm going to eat this, drink this, here's what I'm going to do. And I think it just takes like a little bit of stress, and I don't really have anxiety, but it takes a little bit of anxiety away from like the unknown in a way. Just lets me focus on racing and then, you just go. And then with the new equipment side, it's kind of the same thing. I'll, make sure I have the right equipment and the right tire pressure and that stuff. And you're not second guessing what you have. And once you show up to the start line to race, it's like, all right, this is what I got. Whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant now. Like at Unbound, I'd ran, the slicks and they were fine for most of the race. And I knew once it started raining, I was like, well, that mud at the end is going to be horrible, but this is what I got. So we're going to figure it out and, make it work. But yeah, I think, I don't know. It's a good question. I didn't really put too much thought into that. Like I'm not super detail oriented about my training, or like I don't do a ton of crazy structure or intervals or whatever. We just do a lot of long, hard rides, and we do some structure, but it's not anything crazy. So I think definitely a balance there, because I can't mentally, I just wouldn't enjoy it. I don't like doing that kind of training and whatnot. So
yeah, I was thinking of doing a rapid fire series of questions at the end, and literally the only question that I could think of is going to be this one rapid fire now. And don't make it rapid fire because I want you to dive into it. The question is, intervals or long solo ride?
Oh, long solo ride for sure. Dude, I'd rather do a 24-hour solo than do like probably 10 5-minute intervals, for example.
Okay.
Yeah. I just love just riding. I could just ride all day. I just can ride a solid, reasonably somewhat hard pace and just do it all day long. And
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Terrific answer. And yeah, I mean, man, what you were saying about it's like having the box checked for all of those things, okay, is my equipment dial, is my nutrition dial, that these are things that I don't have to think about as I'm out there for example, 200 miles of Kansas in an event that is relatively unknown to you. Did you do much homework talking to other riders, or do you largely like to just keep it in-house and say, okay, it's 200 miles, I can figure this out with my nutritionist, with my coach, and with a whole handful of hard rides?
Yeah, I mean, man, Unbound was like kind of the only thing I thought about for a couple months leading into it, because I had never done it. And I just had heard, all these stories about flats and it's so hard and the weather and the heat and all this stuff. And it's hard to separate what's like real and what people are just so exaggerating, because it is long and hard. And I think everything becomes different when you're out there for that long. So like maybe everything feels rougher, everything's harder. So I did like look at what people had done in the past and look at their tire choice and see what kind of worked and what didn't. And then also just kind of just like took, thought about it, but also like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do my own thing and kind of take a different approach to it. Russell Finsterwald and I kind of like thought about a bunch of different things and tested different setups in Tucson, doing a bunch of big gravel rides. And the gravel riding down there is super rough and kind of gnarly. So I was like, well, if this setup works here, then it's going to work fine at Unbound. I can't think of anything out there that's going to be any rougher, any worse than what we've done.
Yeah.
So like I went for the 1x setup, which I figured would just be a little safer, less drop chains, and still had the gear range, still had the top gear. And yeah, then worked on aerodynamics a little because as a mountain biker, my position on the gravel bike and road bike was always like pretty upright, and I had wider bars. And so over the few months, I just kind of worked on getting lower and lower and longer and narrower. And now I think I've got one of the faster positions out there. I think it's on par with any of you guys who came from the World Tour. So yeah, so I think I put a lot of thought into it. And it's kind of fun, new challenge. Because I'd always mountain biking for me, it just became so normal and easy. I just knew exactly what I need to do and use these tires. Here's the suspension and all that. So Unbound was a whole nother can of worms. And then you have to figure out the feeding side of things and what you're going to grab and what you're going to pick up. And yeah, so I don't know. I love that stuff. I thought it was really cool. I was like, I wonder what the next, it'd be cool to figure out something else to do to think about all this stuff. So
yeah. Well, for one, I'm psyched you said you rode a slick. I ran a slick in 2021, 700 by 44. And I have no idea if this is true, but I up to that point, I say I'm probably one of the first people to ever run a slick. What did you run?
I ran the Maxxis Refuse 40.
Yeah.
So it's their toughest tire they make. It's like substantially heavier and slower than the tire I ran, the Rambler that I ran at Crusher, because it has like an extra layer of protection over the top, and like the rubber itself, like the slick has like a thick. It's not just like tire casing. It actually has like rubber over it.
Sure.
So yeah, it was like looking at all the different tire options. Like this seems like the toughest, thickest tire they have, even though it rolls a little bit slow. Like I think it's worth it. And maybe like the lack of knobs helps make up for like the slow rolling in the casing, which I think it does a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was the right choice. The only place that was a little bit dicey was in the mud, but honestly, not much is going to be like maybe a tire with knobs is marginally better in there, but also if it had stopped raining, gotten really thick, then the slick's not going to collect any mud either. So I figured the slick was going to be kind of the best all around choice for me. And I ran inserts, so I could run them, have a little more protection and not worry about pinching. And yeah, they were good. I definitely would run them again. Probably will next year.
Yeah. I'm psyched you want to go back. The first year I did it, I won it, and I was like, I'm not going back to this race.
Don't need to go back again.
I don't need to go back. It took 11 months before I was convinced. So here we are, a month and a half out, and you're like, yeah, I could go back. 2, yeah, I think we'll probably, through this podcast, convince a lot of people to run slicks because I think they're faster. You're not diving into corners, so you can take a corner with, a half a second slower and be perfectly fine without the knobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just want a super durable tire to take the punishment.
Like you just need to ride them a bit and kind of learn how they handle, because they do they drift a little more, and the way you have to turn them is differently than a tire with knobs. So I think as long as you get the time on the tire, and it's not like, oh, Unbound's here, let's put on the slick. Like I rode that tire for months going into that race to make sure I was fully confident and I could hang with in Tucson. I was like, okay, if I can stay with Russell on this descent on these slicks and he's on normal tires, and then I'm good. So we did a lot of chasing out there and testing different things. So.
That's a great example. So yeah, we didn't end up crossing paths. We exchanged some messages when I was in Tucson in February for a week. And it was at that point you said you're going to be in Tucson through Unbound. And I thought, oh my God. I mean, I couldn't help but have FOMO because I'm thinking heat acclimatization for Unbound is super important. I mean, coming from New England, right? It can be 50 degrees up until through Unbound. So I'm going to have zero acclimatization here. Come race day, it wasn't actually that hot at all. Am I incorrect in that? I didn't end up going because
it was
had a
little bit humid and it got kind of warm a little bit, but it definitely wasn't hot. And honestly, I was pretty bummed because I was ready for the heat. So I was kind of hoping it was going to be a scorcher because I knew there's a lot of guys that weren't going to be prepared for it.
Right.
And so I went back and forth for a while. I was like, should I go back to Utah and train, get some altitude and whatnot, or should we stay in Tucson and train the heat? Because I knew. And then I was like, May is going to be hot, but it's not going to be terrible. It wasn't so bad. I mean, the highest day was like 105, which is totally manageable as long as you leave somewhat early. So yeah, did a lot of work in the heat, had nutrition and hydration figured out because I had a few really rough days out there, man. Like a few days in Tucson where I like fully fell apart. It was just limping home, ran out of water, and yeah, it was rough. Russell and I had to stop at trailer park once and fill up. And after that, we were like, all right, 3 bottles pack. Like we're just taking all the water we can. Yeah. And also like getting used to riding with the pack is big. And just used to have that extra weight on your back and make sure it doesn't cause any pain and whatnot. So yeah, it worked out. It was fun. Good to train the heat. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, checking all those boxes and as gravel rises to importance for sponsors and people. And I mean, it's at the end of the day, I think they're just fun. So I think as these events continue to get super popular, dialing in those little details is important. Okay, let's see. So you've ridden for some big teams, Cannondale Factory Racing, Stan's Pivot. You're riding with Santa Cruz now. In this age of privateers, do you consider yourself on a team, or are you writing your own script, or are you a privateer? And as I use the word privateer, let it be known, I kind of hate that word, but it describes what I'm talking about decently well.
Totally. No, I'd say we're currently on a team. I mean, Santa Cruz Hit Squad is like, it's a team, but we have a little bit of freedom to do what we want. We kind of make our own race schedule. We can have a lot of sponsors that aren't like, a lot of things are open, you know, helmet, shoes, eyewear, gloves, like nutrition, a lot of stuff that like, you know, is nice to have. You can pick whatever you want, I can run whatever saddle I want. There's like all sorts of things as I have good freedom like a privateer, but at the same time, I still have like some of the team aspect. You know, it's nice to have Tobin and Alexis there. We always have Myron and Sam or Jordan. So it's an awesome squad and we have a good time, and it's cool to kind of, I feel like get a little bit of a blend between the privateer program and a proper full team, which like there's benefits and cons to each one, you know, like on a proper team, you know, you have like the team van or truck, whatever goes to every race. You have all your stuff in there. You have like this and that. Or the privateer, you can do whatever you want. You know, you can pick all the equipment, you can pick your nutrition, you pick your race schedule. So yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of a balance there.
And then stemming off that, I'm sort of curious the logistics of making that machine run. I mean, you are, from a rider perspective and from a sponsor perspective, like you are enviable. You win races and you're a cool dude and people like you. So you could basically, you know, you could go seek out a heck of a lot of sponsorships. Do you seek out sponsorships, or do you have a manager? Do you have somebody negotiating your contracts, or are you managing all that yourself?
No, I've got an agent, manager, however you want to call them. I work with One Sports. So yeah, they've done a lot of help for me when me kind of work things. I don't like that stuff, man. Like, yeah, I don't mind talking to, you know, potential sponsors and whatnot, but it's hard when you get into like money and contracts and this and that. It's nice to have kind of someone in your corner helping you navigate all those waters. So
sure. No disagreement. I mean, I think it adds a level of professionalism to this burgeoning side of, call it privateer, right? I mean,
definitely does. Yeah.
How long have you been working with a manager? Did you do that while you were, you know, racing for the teams previously, or has this been something more recent with the privateer program?
No, so I worked with Michael a couple of years ago, just after, I think it was right when Stan's Pivot was ending. Yeah. I knew that team was coming to an end, and I wasn't sure. We're putting together different privateer options and talking to different teams, and then Santa Cruz kind of, you know, because it kind of snowballed and worked together and came up with this program. So
wicked.
Yeah, just the last couple of years.
It's working.
Yeah.
Your call it physiology. Your strength to weight ratio is world class. Since you've done mountain bike, marathon racing, the pursuit of the Olympics, gravel, this, that, the other, is there anything else you want to do? Do you want to try to go to the world tour? Do you want to race on the road, or do you dig what you have going on now?
I've definitely thought about it. It would just be, at this point in my life and career, it's like, it would have to be like a decent like contract offer. I can't just like oh, I'm going to go stagiaire for this team for X amount of time and miss all these races and miss, miss potential earnings from racing gravel and mountain bikes. And it's like, I feel like I can't gamble on that. I can't gamble on like taking a low offer from them and then be like, oh, maybe I can, increase that over the years. I win a couple of races, or maybe I'm great at doing this and then I can make what I think I'm worth. Mm-hmm. So I think in my mind, like they'd have to gamble on me and be like, oh, I think he can do it. I mean, I think obviously he's got the power to weight and he can ride in a bunch. If he can ride gravel and Unbound and all this stuff, then he's going to be just fine racing on the road.
Yeah.
And you see like all the success from Sepp and Nelson and, all these guys who came from the mountain bike background. So I think in some ways, like, I think I can race, with those guys. And I think, so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, at this point, I'm like not super stressed about if they're interested and they want to try to give me a shot, then I would be willing to do it. But
sure,
I can't like step away from what I'm doing to, anyway.
Makes perfect sense. I mean, it's cool to have confidence in what you were doing now and to have that confidence of saying, you need to have the team come seek you out instead of vice versa. It's really fascinating to me to see this changing of the guard. When I raced for Liquigas, we literally had it in our contract that it listed all the things we couldn't do. It said like no motorsports, no jet skiing, no paragliding, no, because we were an Italian team, they had this really ambiguous one, no 3-on-3 soccer. And then the end of it was, and no other dangerous activities, which I thought was frigging hilarious. And now, you look at the EF program and it's encouraged to go do other stuff. Like there is no way in hell I would have been able to race Leadville, and now they're supposed to race Leadville. They're supposed to race Unbound. So right. I don't know. It's a cool changing of appreciation and changing of the guard to have this diversity. So, I mean, shoot, I think it's got a heck of a lot of potential, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see those teams come knocking. We will see. What kind of stuff, what do you look forward to in the off season? Do you put the bike aside? Do you still love to ride? Do you like, how do you relax? How do you come down at the end of a big season?
It's nice just to, just go ride my mountain bike and do it on my terms and take the trail bike out, go ride Moab or ride some of the fits before it snows, go out and try and ride some of the high country trails here in Utah. Mm-hmm. Ride the dirt bike a bit. I don't get to do that in the season so much. So it's, it's like, I don't want to take it out mid-season and crash and break my hand or something stupid. So save that for off season. I think that's pretty much it. Just love doing those things. Maybe some random hikes here and there. I used to ski a fair bit more, but now start training pretty soon, like November, December, you're already kind of rolling. So it's nice to be in Tucson by then. And still try and sneak out and go ski here and there if I can go home for Christmas or whatever. But
great answers. Well, are your folks still in Park City?
Yep. Yeah, they're still right in town.
Well, you got a decent backyard to go ride in.
Exactly.
Okay. So wrapping up with 3 traditional questions. Number 1 place, your favorite place to ride a bike. What is the number 1 place you want to ride a bike that you've never ridden? And with whom, living or otherwise, who's somebody you want to go on a bike ride with?
I mean, my favorite place is probably here. I think mountain bike, road bike, all that. I think it's some of the best in the world, and I love it. I mean, I've ridden and raced all over the place, and it seems like it's quite hard to beat. That said, there are a few places I still would love to go ride. I would love to go ride my road bike in Europe. I'm always over there riding my mountain bike on the road. I've ridden some of the cool climbs. I've ridden like the Stelvio and some of those climbs around there that were close to some of the World Cup venues we raced at.
Nice.
It'd be fun to ride a road bike over there, get to experience some more of that stuff. And who would I like to ride with? Man, that's a good question. I've never really thought about that.
Not trying to put you on the spot. You can say like Kermit the Frog or...
Yeah, I mean... Kermit the Frog would be pretty cool if he could ride a bike. Honestly. I have no idea.
Just as good. Quite all right. Well, it is July 15th as of this recording. I will be down here in the thick air of Vermont right up until Leadville, which is coming right up. But I trust...
Day before?
Yeah, I'm doing the last minute arrival thing. We host our event, Rooted Vermont. It's going to be July 31st this year. So, and then we start a van trip. So not only will I be coming from thick air, but I'm also going to be in a car for like a week leading up to it. So needless to say, I'll be fresh and ready to go, and we're going to have a stomping race.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sweet. Keegan, I appreciate you taking the time. Massive congratulations on a stunning year so far and years
Thank you.
in our recent past. See you in Leadville, man.
Yeah, we'll see you there. Have a good trip.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
All right, appreciate it.